same pathways brought us here to the Pennsylvania Monument, slightly south of Gettysburg National Cemetery, and the Soldiers National Monument, the place where in 1863 President Abraham Lincoln delivered the Gettysburg Address, one of the greatest speeches of all time. Gettysburg National Military Park pathways are America's enduring pathways that guide us to our history. And an enduring pathway is what we refer to our brief educational component of the program. And tonight I just want to spend a few minutes talking about President Lincoln's visit here at Gettysburg in November 1863. Imagine what it would have been like to see President Abraham Lincoln when he arrived here in Gettysburg. It was a Wednesday evening, November 18th, when Lincoln arrived by a patriotically decorated train at the Carlisle Street Depot, downtown. Many cheering spectators greeted the president as he disembarked from the train and made his way to the home of David Wheels. Unfortunately, that David Wheels house isn't open right now for visitation. Later that evening, crowds out on the street wanted to hear from the president. They cheered for the president to come out and make a speech. Lincoln responded with a wave from the window. The crowd continued to cheer for his speech. Lincoln finally appeared on the York Street steps of the Wheels house. 13-year-old William H. Tipton, an apprentice at the Tyson Brothers Photographic Gallery, was among the spectators. Tipton admired Lincoln greatly. He wrote, "My eagerness to see and hear the president, whom I regarded as much above all other men and second only to the Almighty, centered all my attention on Mr. Lincoln, and no word or movement of his escaped my attention. I had heard that Mr. Lincoln was the homeliest man in the country, but when my eyes beheld that sad but kindly countenance, those strong, rugged features seemed handsome to me." The next day, November 19th, the streets of Gettysburg swelled with visitors. It has been estimated that 10,000 of people were here. Now, Lincoln stepped out of the Wheels house around 10 a.m. and joined the procession on horseback, a very impatient horseback. 8-year-old W.C. Storwick, who lived about 3 miles outside of Gettysburg, observed the following. "I saw Mr. Lincoln. He was about to start down the steps to the sidewalk. I was surprised, I might say awed, by his great height, his black hair and beard, his dark complexion, his head covered with a tall steel cap. I thought he was the tallest man I'd ever seen, and I fancy I can still see him as he appeared to me that day." Now, Lincoln remained on this impatient horse for an hour before the procession started down Baltimore Street at 11 a.m. They traveled south, Baltimore Street, turned right on Emmitsburg Road up here, proceeded to the cemetery at the junction of Tawnytown Road. Tawnytown Road right here. Edward Everett was the principal speaker that day. He began his speech at noon. It lasted nearly 2 hours. After him followed Everett's speech, and then President Lincoln was introduced to make his few appropriate remarks. When Lincoln stood to speak, the large crowd cheered loudly. Charles Young remembered Lincoln's solemn appearance as he faced the audience. Philip Hilker recalled, "With a hand on each side of his manuscript, he spoke in a most deliberate manner and with such a forceful and articulate expression that he could be heard by all that immense throng. There was no gesture except with hands going up and down, grasping a manuscript, which he did not seem to need as he looked at it so seldom." Now, I'd like to close with one final story. Another youngster, 5-year-old George Bourne, had his own memorable encounter with Lincoln. He recalled that a long passageway had opened up through the crowd to allow the president and other dignitaries to leave the cemetery. He wrote, "We were on one side of the aisle, and on the other side there was a drum major covered with gold trimmings. My brother jumped across to be near that individual, and I was in the act of joining him when I felt a hand on top of my head turning me back towards my mother, who was very much chagrined that I should have walked in the way of the president. I have never regretted my act of that day, for it gave me the right to say that I was patted on the head by Abraham Lincoln. Once again, we're really honored tonight to welcome Ian Monahan, tonight's bugler. I'm going to read what we have each of our buglers send in a brief bio. I'm going to read what Ian sent to us. It says, my name is Ian Monahan. I am from Columbia, Maryland. I am 14 years old. I am a Star Scout, patrol leader, and troop bugler for Scout Troop 373, National Pike District, Baltimore Area Council. I am also a rising freshman at Oakland Mills High School. In addition to bugle, I play both alto and tenor saxophone with my school's band, wind ensemble, and I also teaching myself to play the accordion. This is the third year I will have the privilege of performing taps, 100 Nights of Taps. My great-grandmother was a nurse in World War II, and there were no buglers available to play taps at her funeral. When my mother told me this story, it inspired me to learn to play the bugle. So far, I have had the honor to sound taps at a funeral, wreath-laying ceremonies, the Flight 93 National Memorial in Shanksville, Pennsylvania, during the National Moment of Remembrance, as well as other services. I look forward to more opportunities to honor our nation's heroes and reaffirming my commitment to the Scout Code. What a great young man. Gives me much hope for the future. We meet here in Gettysburg National Military Park, so we shall never forget our brave American veterans. We remain steadfast in our dedication to the great unfinished work which those who fought here, as well as in many foreign lands, so nobly advanced. And we honor that they gave the last full measure of devotion so that this nation, under God, shall have a new birth of freedom and the government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth. In keeping with the tradition begun 6 years ago, we will honor one soldier buried up here in Gettysburg National Cemetery every evening. And we honor this one soldier every evening. He comes to represent all the soldiers buried there. And we place the image of that soldier on our commemorative coin, which we award to our buglers and other participants 100 Nights of Taps. This year we are honoring First Sergeant Philip Rice Hamlin. Wendy's walking by with a blow-up of the coin, show you what it looks like. First Sergeant Philip Rice Hamlin, Company F, 1st Minnesota Volunteer Infantry Regiment. These coins are presented, as I said, to our buglers and other participants. This year, our coins are presented in memory of a great friend, former board member of the Lincoln Fellowship, Charles Scott, affectionately known as Scotty, who passed away, a great friend, longtime board member, and admiring student of Abraham Lincoln. I want to tell you a little bit about Sergeant Hamlin.